or to everybody. So I thought we'd just, if anybody had any questions, just open up for questions for a few minutes. Anybody have any public questions they want to ask me? Embarrass me? Stories they want to tell? Anything? Yeah, right here.
What's your highest grade you climbed?
My highest grade I've climbed? Well, like 9A plus, which is like 515. That was a long time ago, though. I peaked when I was about 22 years old. It's all been downhill since then. Not really. No, I just got more into big wall stuff. So. Yep.
How do you sustain your career as a climber? Like, what is there, like, do you have like a trajectory you're shooting for?
Yeah. So originally, that's a great question. So when I first, like, I never planned to be a professional climber. I just went climbing. That's what I love. And so when I was like in my early teens, actually before that, yeah, in my early teens, competition climbing was just kind of becoming a thing in the U.S. And so I entered a competition in Snowbird, Utah. And I had like barely climbed indoors before, but I'd been climbing with my father all over the western United States a ton, so I'd gotten a lot of strength. But there was like no way to compare yourself to anybody back then. So I like unknowingly was like kind of good, and I just won this competition. And so right after that, I got a little bit of sponsorship. Actually it was just gear sponsorship at that point. But I started doing like this national competition circuit. There was only 4 competitions a year in the U.S. back then. And so I'd do all those. And I'd usually like place in the top 4 or 5, and that gave me just enough money out of high school that I could kind of like climb full time. And then I started getting more into adventure climbing, and for a long time it was just from a little bit of competition winning and then just sponsors paying for trips. And then I was bussing tables as well in the summer. And then just over the years it's just gotten, I started getting into writing a little bit, so I'd write articles for magazines, a little bit of guiding here and there. It's kind of like freelance work. Yeah. And then now making movies and writing books. And, yeah. Now it works all right. A little bit of speaking. So yeah, it's funny. I bailed on high school altogether, on college altogether, right out of high school, and but because of climbing, I've had like this amazing education in so many things. Yep, right here.
As you're trying to crush different goals, you obviously need to push yourself into areas you're like, oh, crap, I really need to work on my slab, I guess.
Yeah.
So my question is, what's your favorite style of climbing, and what is your least that you had to work through?
So my favorite style of climbing is probably like dead vertical, slightly overhanging, like really technical climbing and crack climbing. I think I like all forms of climbing. But what I've always been the worst at is like real thuggy, steep, like overhanging sloper climbing. I've got baby little hands and I'm missing a finger, so it doesn't help. But I've never been somebody who built muscle that well either, so that's why I'm a little bit better at the techie stuff. Yeah. Right there?
What's some of your favorite climbing outdoor around here?
Yosemite, obviously. I spent like half my life there. But right here, I've climbed a fair amount on Donner Summit, which is amazing. The name of the place. But I've been to some crag really close to here that's like a canyon that has all these like flash flood warning. What's that place called?
The gorge.
The gorge, yeah. So I've been there just a day when I was like 15 years old. But that's really all that I've sampled right in the area. And then on the I-50 corridor, like Sugarloaf and Phantom Spires and Lover's Leap, and I don't know, it's all good. It's California, and Sierra Granite's as good as it gets, right? Yeah. Nikki?
I thought maybe talk about what you're doing now.
Yeah, this kind of goes a little bit to like how you sustain yourself as a climber. So I'm getting into a lot of environmental activism work, kind of stepping up my role in Patagonia and the companies that I work with. It's crazy where climbing brings you. Like, this brought me all over the world on all these great adventures, even when I was really young, and now it's getting me into like going to Washington D.C. and lobbying, and I'm doing environmental activism work. So that's been pretty exciting. Yep, right there.
Is this the best climbing gym you've ever climbed?
Oh, by far. Yeah, no, I love love these little like small homegrown gyms. This is what they all used to be like, and so it brings nostalgia. But this is the modern twist with the actually legitimately good route setting, which is great. Used to be when you come into these little gyms randomly, the route setting was kind of hit or miss, but this one's really good.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
Do you do any like cross training or like, and what's your diet like? Do you pay attention to that, or you go like top ramen style?
So I didn't pay attention so much to ramen, or to to diet for a lot of years. But when I was, I worked on the Dawn Wall for 7 years, and at some point I was like, I'm never gonna climb this unless I actually get scientific and figure out how to get better. So I did. I started to like analyze my diet a bunch. I cut out all bread and sugar, and then I decided to only consume caffeine when I was actually on the Dawn Wall proper. so it would really be effective because we were climbing in the middle of the night and stuff. So when it would be like 11 o'clock at night, I would like take a hit of caffeine, and so I ended up losing like 10 pounds just from not eating bread and sugar. And then just would eat a really vegetable-heavy diet because skin issues were like a big deal on that route. And so actually consuming a lot of leafy greens and stuff like that was a big deal for keeping Kevin and our skin healthy. So we actually brought, weirdly enough, like bags of kale and avocado and stuff up on the Dawn. And these days I'm a vegetarian, but that's more like environmental reasons that I do that. Was that the whole question? Just diet?
Oh, it was like I had the cross training part in there too. Just
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of generally a mountain lover. So I do a ton of backcountry skiing and a little bit of mountain biking and a lot of running. Although I realized for most of the climbing I do, that stuff is actually detrimental. If I want to be the best climber I can be, it's better to just like save all my energy for like strengthening my fingers and my arms. But it depends. Like if I want to climb really hard things, even like the Dawn Wall qualified, that was the best way to train. But if I'm gonna go and like go to Patagonia or like speed climb the nose with Alex or go climb multiple routes on El Cap in a day or something like that, then all that cross training is great. So I've gone through periods of my climbing where I'll kind of like go out maybe 3 days a week for like 14 hours a day, and I'll do like the kind of finger-specific sport climbing or bouldering, but then also go on long runs and bike rides and just kind of generally try to beat myself up in the mountains. Yeah, so it's different. It's pretty diverse. Yeah, right there.
You said you're kind of focusing on environmental activism now. Is there like a specific movement within that you want to support, whether it's reforestation or renewable energy, or just anything you're focusing on mainly because it's so broad?
Yeah, it varies depending on like the specific time. For the past 18 months, it was like public lands issues, and I was working a lot with the Access Fund because they were pretty focused there. Now it's more like carbon reduction, stuff with Patagonia. Like I'm really a student of it right now, more than anything, with the exception of going to DC a few times a year and lobbying for specific events. And these are like these events that are set up through like the American Alpine Club or the Access Fund or PAL, Protect Our Winters, where you go and they set up a whole series of meetings. And so yeah, it's more, and yeah, I'm just super excited about like reading tons about it and trying to figure out how to activate climbers towards that cause.
Aside from like developing new routes or climbing places that increase in climate, where do you see the future of climbing going?
I mean, I think it's going to diversify quite a bit, like it has. It's going to go in all directions at once, just because these days, depending on how you define it, don't aspire to go outside ever. You know, they just climb indoors. And so I think the whole gym, like Olympic culture, is going to probably be what's going to grow the most coming up. But that's going to expose so many people that will just sort of filter into all aspects, like bouldering, sport climbing, ice climbing, like super alpinism. It's all going to be affected, and it's funny how all that starts in the gym. You know, my buddy Alex Honnold is such a great example of that. He started climbing real close to here in Sacramento, California, just like a gym rat for 10 years, and now he's like the most badass adventure climber in the world. Cool. Yep. Anybody else? Right there.
What's your next big project?
So I mean, I've been writing books and with the movie and just kind of like working for a bunch of years and haven't been able to focus on big climbing projects as much in the past couple of years. But I do have like another El Cap route like right next to the devil that I scoped out this last fall. Like figured out the line. It took me a bunch of trips up there to find it, and I mean, I really aspire to go to places like Greenland, Baffin Island, and the Karakoram and places like that. Like I'd love to take sort of that Yosemite style of climbing and back to Patagonia and do that. But since I have 2 small children and I really don't want to die and can't leave for several months at a time, it seems like Yosemite is the sweet spot. Like I can bring the family there, and the rock is solid. It's really a pretty safe place to climb. So, yep.
I was gonna say, where's your favorite place to climb outside of the States?
There's so many good places. I mean, probably the place that gets me the most excited when I just sit here and think about it is Patagonia in southern Argentina. But I spend a month or 2 every year in Europe, and I think the bouldering in Fontainebleau is incredible. It's my favorite place to go bouldering. In France, and then the sport climbing in South France and northern Spain is really, really good too. Yeah. Yep.
Are there any other professional athletes you've met who are involved in environmental activism whose message you appreciate or look up to?
Yeah, so Jeremy Jones, the founder of POW, Protect Our Winters, he's from Lake Tahoe. I think he's here. Somebody told me he's here at this event. Somebody else verify that? Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Okay, he's here. Yeah. So he's a huge one. He has this way of thinking about that stuff, and it's just like so simple and powerful, and he's such a doer. He makes things happen in this pretty incredible way. Yvonne Chenard, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, and Rick Ridgway and a lot of the people surrounding. Got so many great sort of mentors through Patagonia proper. Yep. Cool.
Well, I thought we'd do any like signing or any of that we could do after, maybe after.
Yeah, I think we're selling books here tonight
And
or
there's
today.
books.
Yeah, there's a
too.
few. There's a box of those outside, right? Is that there? So if anybody wants any books, and we'll probably have those at the film tonight too. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and thanks again to
That's
Cliff
what I
for they're the one who brought me here and making this happen. Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah.